What's good, degenerate gamblers? Welcome to video 4 of the Crazy Ninja Mike Devigger video series. In this video, we're going to talk about interpolation, how to make notes on the Devigger, how to do it efficiently and actually usefully, how to share your bets, and of course, how to estimate vig when you only have a one-sided market. First, let's start off with notes because it's kind of an underrated skill to have in the Devigger. You can type / here and then just put notes in case you wanted to screenshot this and show it to somebody else. That way you can show them, hey, here's the Washington Mystics money line, and maybe you want to say this is their money line on Pinnacle, and then maybe you're betting this on FanDuel. So you have the final odds here, -110. You can hit / here and just put a little note, and you can write whatever you want. It's just kind of a useful thing if you're trying to share the DVig and show it to other people. And actually, you can do this in the final odds text box as well. You can hit / and then type whatever you want here. Maybe you say FanDuel's odds, and that way you can still calculate, and the DVig still works perfectly properly. If you don't put that / though, it won't work. It's going to say invalid final odds. So if you want to put those notes in, you put / and then you can write literally whatever you want to kind of get your message across. So this can be useful if you're sharing this with other people, or maybe you're just making notes for yourself and you're trying to find the fair odds of the boost. And you could say, okay, this was the Pinnacle result. Now I want to check it against Bet Online as well. And maybe I just do it totally separately or whatever. And you can hit / and put your little notes in. Perhaps the most useful tool in here for sharing your DVig is the copy DVig's URL button shown right under the DVig results, which is copy DVig's URL. So you're copying the URL specifically for the inputs that you put in here, and then you can send them to somebody else. You can copy paste it elsewhere, post it in a Discord that you have friends that bet, or post it on Twitter to show, hey, here is my work. This is why I think that this bet is good. Being able to copy the DVig URL instead of just the screenshot is nice, because then people can come in, edit it themselves in case you made a mistake or in case they want to add some note or something. Another cool feature that you can do regarding these notes is you can enable this text box to be a multi-line text box. So normally if you hit enter, it's just going to calculate the boost. It has the enter button coded to calculate, but if you scroll down here and you hit use multi-line text box, then when you hit enter, it's actually going to give you the ability to put multiple lines in here, which can be really useful. You can actually just drag it right here. And so let's say we have some sort of parlay and it's like Washington Mystics, money line, DVig versus Pinnacle, but they didn't have the odds out for the Phoenix Mercury game yet. So you DVig that versus Bet Online. So you can really easily put that here in your notes to show, hey, Washington Mystics, DVig versus Pinnacle, Phoenix Mercury, DVig versus Bet Online. And then maybe you have a bunch of other bets in there as well. Hopefully your final odds are better than this. Maybe your final odds are 225, which would probably be good on FanDuel. And we have a 4.6% edge. But that's just kind of a nice little feature, especially if you're DVigging maybe a multi-way market, such as like a golf winner. It can be useful in that market. Another way that this could be useful is if you're taking an average and maybe you're DVigging a first basket score market. And I'll show you that real quick. Okay, so this looks a little bit complicated, but it's really not all that complicated. The way I did this was, of course, I enabled down here, use the multi-line text box. I'm DVigging a first basket score, which I noted here in my notes. We're checking out Jimmy Butler to score the first basket, DVig versus Caesar, Bet Online, and FanDuel. You can see I have those odds averaged here, like we just talked about earlier, separated by /, just how we always DVigged our multi-way market. You can see it's just Jimmy Butler's average / Bam Adebayo's average / Max Strus's average / Jokic, and all the way down. And I just have little notes here to show, hey, these are the odds for Jokic, these are the odds for Murray. So in case I want to DVig, Jamal Murray's odds for first basket, then I can just copy here and then put them ahead of Jimmy Butler's odds, and now that's what I'll be measuring. So it's just like we did before, even though it looks a little bit difficult. We're just averaging odds from 3 different sports books. We have the / like we did before in the multi-way market, and we're also making it bigger here so it's easier to put notes in and kind of show, hey, these are the odds for this guy, these are the odds for this guy. It can be useful if you're doing these first basket markets, maybe if you're DVigging some golf odds or NASCAR odds or something like that. And so that's why this could be useful. But again, just make sure you have these // here, because if you don't have those, then this just straight up won't work because it'll just screw up the odds box. So you have to have the / to indicate that it's a note, that this is Aaron Gordon's odds. Those are probably really good odds for Aaron Gordon, but I just kind of made up the odds for this example. Now we're going to talk about an implied EV percentage tool that is also super easy to use. You don't even really need to understand DVigging to use this one. So let's say your favorite Twitter account, hypothetically, maybe it's the DGen Boost, he tweets out Lionel Messi anytime goal scorer plus 200 is plus 21% expected value on DraftKings. So it's a great bet. but he's too lazy or not smart enough to give you the fair value. He doesn't give you the win percentage. And without the win percentage or the fair value, you don't know how much to bet on it, right? Because you need that for your Kelly criterion calculator, for your quarter Kelly criterion calculator. Well, the Crazy Ninja Mike Devigger can help you out with that. So if you're getting a bet that is plus 200 odds and you have the implied EV percentage, you can actually just type that in to this leg odds text box, and it's going to tell you what the fair value for that bet is if the expected value is actually 21%. You just type in EV equals and then 21%, which is what your favorite Twitter account or a Discord account or wherever you got the pick from is telling you the expected value is. Final odds are 200. We hit calculate, and the Crazy Ninja Mike Devigger is actually going to give us the fair value for that bet, assuming again that expected value that the other person gave you was right. So this is kind of nice if you're on Twitter and someone just puts out, hey, this play is massively plus expected value, and you trust the account, or maybe it's one of your friends or wherever you found it, but you don't know the fair value, so you're not exactly sure how much to bet. You can actually just put in the EV percentage, whatever it is. So if it's 7% expected value, then it's going to tell you the fair value for that. Super easy. EV equals the percentage, and then all you need is the final odds, which of course you have. Now let's talk about how to devig one-way odds. It's really quite easy to do on the Crazy Ninja Mike Devigger. The tough part is we have to do a little bit of estimation, which can be a bit challenging. This is why I typically like to take an average when I'm devigging one-way odds and to stay fairly conservative. Say that we don't take an average, we're just using one book to devig odds for a boost, and it's like 2 players to go over 20 points, but they're both heavily favored to do it. It's, Nikola Jokic, whose over-unders at 29.5, and Joel Embiid, whose over-unders at 31.5. And so they're both really heavily favored to do it. So Joel Embiid's odds are minus 600. Jokic's odds, let's say they're minus 450. Now, of course, we don't want to just take those odds at face value because that doesn't take the vig into account. That's going to make the boost look way too good. We have to apply some sort of vig even if we don't have two-way odds. We can do that really simply by just kind of estimating. This is about what the vig should be. All we need to do is put a slash and then 8%, 7%, 5%, 10%. Depends on the book, depends on the market. Say 7% for now. That's fairly standard for lots of player props to have a just put slash and then we hit 7% or 5%, 6%, whatever. And then we do the same thing for this bet. This is going to show us more reasonably what the sports books think the true odds actually are, right? Because they don't want to give us a fair price. Typically, they're going to give us worse than a fair price. So now we apply 7% vig, 7% vig, and we can see, okay, Embiid's actually about 80% chance to do it. Jokic is minus 325, 76.5% chance to do it. So it's not actually minus 450. And that's what we can do. If we want to be a little bit more conservative, we can apply 10% vig, whatever, 12% vig. Now the odds go higher, they go up because we're being more conservative with this bet. Even if we don't have two-way odds on any of the books, a lot of times we can find one-way odds on a lot of the books. So maybe we look at FanDuel and DraftKings and Bet365, and we can average those together and kind of combine the two methods of estimating vig and of using the average function. Average parentheses and then put in the odds from the 3 different books, slash still 10%. And now this boost, it's still a ridiculously good boost, but we're being a little bit more conservative and we're taking the opinion of the entire market instead of just one book when we look at a lot of books. That's why this can be useful to take an average and use the vig estimator to come up with the fair odds. We can actually use this vig estimator to look at the other side of a bet as well. So I'm going to show you an example of that. So let's say at one specific book, we actually have the under for Joel Embiid in this same example. We have the under for Joel Embiid at plus 400 odds on one of the books, but we don't have the over under anywhere, so we can't devig it easily. 3 different books have his over at minus 600, minus 550, minus 375. We can actually estimate a vig on the other side to come up with fair odds for the other side of the bet. So let's say 7% like we just did at the start. We can see that they think the fair value when we take the average into account, applying a 7% vig. So if they had this line for the other side, the fair value would be plus 420. This can actually be super useful if you're looking into some of these alt player point lines. Maybe only one book has the under or one book has the super high over. You can kind of get an idea of what the sportsbooks actually think it is. One thing to note here, when you're taking the other side, it's actually going to be less conservative. So notice how fair value here is plus 420. If I apply a 5% vig, estimating what that would be, it's actually going to be higher. It's going to be 438. If I applied a 3% vig, it's going to be even higher. So keep that in mind. Don't go apply a 15% vig and think you're going to be super conservative, because that's actually going to give you a lower fair value. A little bit confusing, I get it. See how the fair value now, this plus 400 odds, looks really positive. Because if we're applying a high VIG to these lines, it's going to make the other side look better because it's going to be lower. I saved the best for last. Finally, we're going to talk about interpolation or linear interpolation. This is super useful if we have a line for some sort of boost or something, but we don't have the exact line for it on these other books. However, we might have a line that's lower than it and a line that's higher than it. For example, maybe we have a boost that says Patrick Mahomes to throw for 315 passing yards, but the sports books only have him priced at 300 yards and 330 yards or 350 yards. And so we can use linear interpolation to come up with the fair odds for him to throw for 315 yards. So remember I said that we need 315 yards. So in this example, I got the over 314.5. So I typed INT here, parentheses, 314.5. semicolon 299.5, because remember we have the odds for him to go over 300. So the fair odds for that I've got equals minus 240. Let's say those are the fair odds for him to go over 300, and so I have that here, comma, we also have the odds for him to go over 330, so I've got 329.5 equals, and we'll say the fair odds for that were minus 110. Then we just close the parenthesis, and let's say the odds for the boost for him to get 315 yards are, I don't know, minus 120. And it's going to give us the fair odds for him to go over 315 yards. In this case, it's going to be fair value minus 160. So in this example, we've got a great bet at odds of minus 120. And the reason this is useful is because we didn't have any lines for him to go over 315 because none of the books supplied them. But this can give us an idea of what the books would have set them at because we've got the fair value of the 299.5 and of the 329.5 or 300 and 330. We can find the fair value for something in between that. So this also would have worked if 312 or something like that. This would have worked just fine as well. It would have returned a different value, which would have been minus 173, but ultimately it works just the same. I use the yardage example because I think this is where we will find it most useful during the NFL season, but this can be useful for basketball odds as well, right? If we have a guy's over 25 and an over 30, but we don't have him to go over 27.5, we can do the exact same thing here using this interpolation function. If my shirt looks a little bit different, it's because I definitely forgot to record an outro for this video. But for video 5, we're going to look at some other functions that I haven't even touched on yet. It'll teach you how to devig bets like Bryce Harper or Aaron Judge to hit a home run in X game or on X day, or this guy, or this guy to win a NASCAR race, or John Rahm and Rory McIlroy, one of them to win the US Open, and how we calculate that when we have independent events as well as mutually exclusive events. It's not that difficult, to be honest. You can definitely do it, but it just takes a little bit of practice, takes a little bit of teaching, and so I'm definitely going to get into that in video 5. If you got any questions, definitely hit me up. Good luck on your bets tonight. Not that you need it since you're betting with an edge. Thanks.